everyone. I'm Charles Prodigy Richey here, and just getting ready to digest as we're near the month at the end of the month of January here, which the recent 2024 season for the Pittsburgh Steelers campaign just concluded. Ugly style. Sky is falling right now in the Steel City, as we could all imagine. Art Rooney the second just doing his year-ending interviews, and not really much to feel optimistic about right now. But just trying to pick up the shared pieces of a mirror right now, and this is definitely right now by far when you gather everything together, not only the worst playoff loss they had in recent memory, considering how the season just ended. I mean, just 5 game losing streak. I mean, right now, and just to lose 4 games in the regular season, and then top it all off, once again being one and done in the playoffs. And after that performance right there, I mean, 0 for 5 since having your last playoff victory versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And Mike Tomlin, who Art Rooney believes that you'll ever get rid of a good coach, who is now 3-9 since their last Super Bowl. I don't know where to begin right now. I mean, other than that, I mean, just been thinking to myself. You just keep hearing that old saying right there. If at first you don't succeed, try again. It's really just quite an embarrassing time right now for anyone that's a frustrated Steeler fan. Hopefully, hoping that this team could get back to some level of the prestige that it once established. Now, let's be honest, too. I mean, a lot of this, when we truly look at it, I mean, from the organization standpoint, it's really been the media and the fans, I think, banging their fists on the wall, trying to keep this organization in check. And you wonder why you hear, I mean, voices in the media. I mean, like, start wondering where, when did the standard like slip around here that it's okay to be just in the playoffs? I mean, they definitely got their work cut out for them. I mean, for a team who right now continues to stick to its guns, I mean, you do need a defense, but to still be one of the highest paid defenses. I mean, once again, this past off season, and to show a mediocre, lackluster performance versus the Ravens. I mean, this one was even close. I mean, this one. I mean, in Baltimore. I mean, really. I mean, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the Steelers did eventually lose that contest to the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, final score when we look at it by 2 possessions, lost by about 3 the last time. Especially, I mean, when you had like a pick six, I mean, late in that one that sealed their fate in Baltimore, the day they had an opportunity to win that game versus the Ravens, they could have been division champions of the AFC North. They already lost. They were trying to get like shake off a loss versus the Eagles the prior week and go to Baltimore and sweep that season series, but they did it. We all know what happened. I mean, less than 4 days later, or about 4 days later, excuse me, they will lose to the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas, then lose to the Bengals, who did not get the help they needed to make the playoffs, made a hell of a surge. And I was talking with someone very close to mine. I was watching with my cousin, I mean, the Super Wildcard Round game. And I mean, we're both pretty much in agreement. I mean, it was more his thoughts that Cincinnati versus Baltimore in that wild card round will be a way better game. And I gotta admit, I mean, it's no denying that. I mean, the Steelers just got way far off. I mean, with the quarterback play, and now when you really look at where it really gets frustrating here, you have five quarterbacks in the last five. I mean, in the last 3 years, trying to be the starting successor to Ben Roethlisberger, who is now 3 years into retirement and possibly could have his very first induction to the Hall of Fame within 2 years on his first attempt. I mean, you think back to the prior years when Ben Roethlisberger at that at that moment in time, you want to go as far back, maybe I don't know, 2019 or so. I mean, the time when he got his throwing elbow hurt. I mean, shoot, you can even maybe argue a year before that, even though 2018 he threw for over 5,000 yards passing, the only season he ever did. And some were starting to wonder right then. I mean, especially that following year, since Ben Roethlisberger had to like pretty much start over with a fresh new receiving core, with the exception of Juju Smith-Schuster. You would get guys like Chase Claypool, Move, but especially during that first year in COVID, where he had one of his best, I mean, touchdown to passing interception ratios. I mean, 6 years earlier, and that was the time right there. Now he did take a $5 million pay cut in the 2021 offseason. But I mean, he had to plead his way, beg his way, hands and knees to re-sign back with this team. I mean, to stay on as our quarterback versus being released. And he played his final season. He was eventually forced out. His lack of mobility was definitely becoming a huge problem for Mike Tomlin. But before he got hurt, when you had a killer B offense, and I hate to keep going back to that, but when you had the glory days, or not glory, how about just the fun moments? We had Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, coupled with Ben Roethlisberger, and also a defense that were slowly starting to gel right there. They're slowly starting to get back into their form where they should be. And there you have it. I mean, it was just his lack of mobility. I mean, run a West Coast system implemented by Todd Haley. I mean, where he had to do all the quick passes, quick short passes that could turn into like long yards by the receivers. And I mean, he had like definitely statistically, I mean, his best stats ever. It did not, unfortunately, bring another Super Bowl or pair of Super Bowls in that time. None to show for it. But I mean, just imagine. I mean, people always keep going back to that 2018 draft where they were ahead of the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, towards the end of that draft, and I mean, to close out the draft, I mean, in that first round, I mean, for them, when you look at it, for the 2018, let's see. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens did end up snatching Lamar Jackson the end of round. I believe they trade up. They got Lamar Jackson, who replaced Joe Flacco, but also they also had Hayden Hurst though too, selected at 25. So I mean, look at how that worked out. A lot of people were be wondering how much was that miss for the Steelers. And even if they did get Lamar Jackson here, I mean, in the black and gold, knowing what we know now, do you really put the trust in guys like Randy Fiechner, Matt Canada, or currently who they have right now, Arthur Smith? Now, maybe Arthur Smith, you could probably argue. I mean, since he loves to run the ball a lot more, but the prior two coordinators, after they forced out Todd Haley, I'm not so sure. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I think he could have still done something under Arthur Smith. But when you look at when he won his last MVP, his second MVP, when he was paired last year, his first year working together with Tom Munkin, he took his passing level to the next level. And he's probably on the verge right now of earning his third league MVP award. I mean, in his career. Lamar Jackson, I mean, his playoff, I mean, what he's got to show for his playoff run, he's only been to as far as to the AFC Championship game. Still so much struggles in big spots. I mean, there's a reason why people feel like, he's got to show it more so in the playoffs. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I mean, when you try and flip the script here real quick, 70-24 in the regular season with a 65% passing completion with 166 touchdowns and 49 interceptions. In the playoffs, 3-5, 10 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and he's about nearly 5% less of his completion percentage. And he's took in at least, I mean, in that time, more sacks, 29. He's got sacked 29 times in the postseason in about 8 games, which is pretty significant versus the regular season. Took 192 sacks in about 94. Not as bad, but still, it's, it's growing on him. So, I mean, he's still right now. I mean, he has best completion percentages first year with Tom Munkin. I mean, throwing for over 67%, 24 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. I mean, and it's just definitely, and his yards per attempt were the highest at that time. He's done more than that this year, throwing 8.8 yards per attempt. So really becoming a lethal passer now. But the point is, right now, I mean, when you look at, you try to figure out what they're going to do. I mean, as far as Art Rooney being asked, there's going to be no changes to the current coach staff. So far, none as far as with Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith, Terrell Austin, and either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. It'll be either or Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, ideally, to stay on as quarterback. They need to do something fast before the March deadline and free agency here. They better find a way to get one of those guys locked up for a few more years. Someone's going to have to be that bridge quarterback. But I think right now, when you look at it, and I would still prefer Russell Wilson last season. I'm not regretting that. But now, and I'm still not the biggest Justin Fields fan, but I mean, Bob Haney made a very interesting point. They should have never switched from Justin to Russell Wilson. At the time, it did work. I mean, he won 6 games right there. I mean, 6-5 record. But I mean, at the end of the day, too, Bob really believes you would have kept a full year under Justin Fields, let him ride it out behind him. You could probably got a lot more of a sense of evaluation of what the ceiling could have been for Fields with the Steelers and his NFL career. Justin Fields, I mean, right now, I mean, based on age, I mean, he is definitely he he is really going to be probably like the best option right now. Who right now is going to be he's going to be 26 on March 5th. Well, you got Russell Wilson, who will be turning 37 in November 29th, nearly a decade apart. I mean, right now, I mean, that's some real talk right now. Russell wants to finish his career as a Steeler, but right now, all signs with Pete Carroll being hired as the Las Vegas Raiders coach, all signs seem to point and probably be a good fit. They seem to patch things up that he may just go on and follow Pete Carroll, reunite with him with the Raiders as their guy until they find their next quarterback. And I think that'd probably be a better fit for all sides at this point. I think you have to look at Justin Fields a little bit harder. And I'm not going to be locking into him as your long term star. But for right now, until you find that guy and you keep competing the way you do, I mean, you're never going to really find that quarterback. Now there's some talks. There's a guy from Alabama right there, according to Ray Fittipaldo of the Post Gazette. One guy would probably be considered as Jalen Milroe. Now he did good in his first season start in Nick Saban, which we proved to be Nick Saban's final season as coach with the Alabama Crimson Tide, who delivered six national championships with them. But he threw for 2,834 yards, but more importantly, 23 touchdowns and six interceptions. Last season, regressed a little bit. Now he had about 10 more passing yards the following season, but the biggest drop off touchdown interception ratio 16 touchdowns and 11 picks. Now that may be something they could look to get like as a round three project. Right now, gosh, you, I'm looking at a lot of these guys. We'll get onto this on another episode, but it's going to be a project year right now for guys that Steelers could develop along with Mike Tomlin's coaching staff. And it's definitely right now. I mean, it's just you're not giving yourself any real shot. I mean, is this the time where Mike Tomlin always likes to preach winning football? I highly doubt that he's gonna like bite the bullet for the sake. For saving grace of that we need to be in a higher position in the draft. Mike Tomlin clearly at this point is a guy who does not like to lose. So I think that puts more pressure right now on your GM tandem in Omar Khan, Andy Weidel. Do you consider, reach back out to a guy like Mason Rudolph if he can't come to the decision right there, get a package deal, and you invest your money, you pay the money, whatever you have to do to bring T. Higgins over to the Steelers. At the end of the day, I just feel like right now it's just I've lost all confidence right now in Mike Tomlin, as a lot of fans have. I do not trust this guy to be leading this team back to the promised land where they need to be. Not anytime soon. As long as the only thing that could threaten Tomlin, like I said, if he does have his losing season like this year, and let's just say it's like seven, no worse than 5, 6 wins. That can be too much. I mean, I think for Art to like want to walk away from Mike Tomlin just yet. I mean, his eyes, I'm sure he's earned a good leash, but he's always kept it competitive. The winning seasons, he keeps uh, the leash keeps extending for him to stick around with the organization. And for a guy who still believes that running the football is still effective in this league, I would agree with that. But at the end, it's more, excuse my language, it's a half-assed answer when you're not getting the quarterback resolved. It's just not. Who the hell are we kidding ourselves right now seeing this team? And you wonder for the last 5 years when you listen to a guy like Joe Starkey or Paul Alexander, I believe it was, from Odyssey, 93.7 The Fan, especially Joe Starkey. I mean, he's been saying, like, when is the seat going to start getting hot for Mike Tomlin? I'm not sure if he's even got to that point. I think the only thing I could say is that the only way it would get hot if they find a way to have a good off season free agency. Let's just say they make some trades, make some more cash space. They're willing to go all in, spend the money, the guys they need to have, and you draft the pieces that you want. You give Mike Tomlin everything he needs, and it turns into like a 5-12 season, anywhere from 5 to 8 wins. But even still, I think it has to be multiple seasons of that. But I think on the conditions right there, if he has a losing season where they give him everything he wants, maybe that will, you know, Art really will probably like start thinking a bit. But I'm not really sure at this point. I mean, standard right now. I mean, you hear guys like James Harrison, like over a week ago, questioning what the standard is. I mean, who was talking right there with one of his former players, and he says it just sounds like a saying than anything. It's just like I mean, you're the coach that's like taking the responsibility. What are you doing to fix things? And even Ben Roethlisberger too. I mean, who took his shots at Mike Tomlin and this team. I mean, he's even saying right now in an interview with Jerry Dulac, it feels like there's no Steelers way anymore, according to Big Ben. There's still guys who have it, but it doesn't feel like it. It frustrates me to watch it happen. It might be time to figure out what you've got to do for the next couple of years to make a run. Prosper was saying on the phone. I don't know that they're there yet. They're that close, to be honest. I mean, Rosberg was also adding too. They're not just a quarterback away, in his opinion. If Russ is willing to take a lower deal for less money, I go with Russ. Rosberg said. If not, I think it's an issue to give Justin a shot. Why not? Let him be in the same system for another year. Give him a chance. What's the worst that happens? If you go with Justin, you pay him less money than Russ. You save some money, and if it goes well, you've got a guy who plays well. If it doesn't go well, you're right back where you are now. You could draft a guy. And going back to like what I was saying earlier about how the Steelers like spent a lot of money on their defense. Rayfield Paul would know as far as like on the opposite side of that ball, the offense, they spent a little more than 48 million of last year's salary cap on offensive players, which was the lowest paid offense in the league. The Chiefs, defending back-to-back Super Bowl champions, trying to be the first team to ever repeat in the Super Bowl era, winning 3 straight Lombardis, has spent 3 times as much on their roster, 145 million, which is the second highest in the league behind another former Super Bowl champion in recent memory, the Los Angeles Rams. 174 million. I mean, right now, Matthew Stafford, his future's in question right now. I mean, he's still got a year remaining on his deal. Do the Steelers try and make a trade right now for a guy like Matthew Stafford? I mean, if you can't find that mobile quarterback, I mean, if you have Matthew Stafford around, I'm not sure that's going to bode well for Russell Wilson to stick around. I mean, that pretty much, I think, seals his fate where he'll be like, thanks, but no thanks. I mean, he'll be more than glad to reunite with Pete Carroll. But I think, if anything, I mean, yeah, Mike Tomlin's definitely been paying attention to having a mobile quarterback. Mobility is something they've been paying attention to. But at the same time, I'm willing to right now add a guy, Matthew Stafford. I mean, who still made one hell of a playoff, run. I mean, and when healthy, he's took it to that team to the playoffs every year. He knows what it's like to get a game-winning drive. I mean, in the Super Bowl, and for him right here, I mean, to just, I mean, in this postseason alone, right there, I mean, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, which is pretty freaking good. I mean, yeah, it came against the Vikings. I mean, and the Eagles, who they're typically a drive away from pulling off one of the biggest upsets in the playoffs. I mean, Lightning could have struck twice in that second round. I mean, the Lions losing to Washington on Saturday night, pretty much the golden opportunity for the Eagles cashed it in. Nearly blew it in a tight matchup versus the Rams. But I mean, for a guy, I mean, Matthew Stafford right now, who'll be turning 37, I mean, February 7th, and next Friday, not this Friday, but the following Friday, that's something to think about. I mean, yeah, his pricing is still probably a little bit higher, but I think a guy like him, if you trade him, if the Rams are willing to pick up a big chunk of his deal and you keep it reasonable, I mean, from his side, I mean, he doesn't got much time left, but I mean, he's still very an attractive piece for another team somewhere. The game, yes, has definitely gotten the mobile quarterbacks. Well, if you're going to choose like one last ace in the deck for Pittsburgh, I would be hoping that you're going to continue like stick with pocket passers. Matthew Stafford may not be a bad idea at this point. The only problem is this offensive line right now is still trying to like gel together. And you got to really fix some stuff right there. I mean, since 2019, the Steelers have only signed 2 offensive draft picks, a second contract. Uh, Deontay Johnson, who eventually got traded last year. And the other is tight end Pat Freiermuth, who just signed his second deal this past summer before the start of the season. Although possible at this point, it seems unlikely the Steelers will sign 2022 second round pick George Pickens to a contract before the start of next season. I mean, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on Kelvin Austin right there to step up. I'm not sure if he's ready to become like that number one wide receiver just yet. Mark Bali was on the fan discussing that with the guys. I mean, that would be a huge leap for him. But I see Calvin Austin as more like a supporting cast. I mean, he's doesn't have that rock star cachet that could be that receiver for this team. It's not like he's an Antonio Brown type that's ready to succeed Mike Wallace. Hell no. But they definitely do got some thinking right now. If you got George Pickens right now, who's really burning some bridges right now, as we're seeing towards the end of last year, I mean, the concerns about the way he's been distancing himself. I mean, Mike Tomlin, who's tried to do everything to give him all the support he's needed. I'm shopping the hell out of this guy. See what kind of assets you can get for him right now. You're gonna probably get no more than like a early second day pick for him. Probably in the same similar situation how they drafted Joey Porter Jr. I'm not sure they're getting a first round pick. I mean, teams will definitely probably check him on that and probably stay away from taking the bait of getting a first round pick. But this is what you gotta really think about. And you better find someone right away. I mean, aside from Jalen Milroe, I mean the other guys too. I mean, I mean, receivers. There's one guy out of who's coming in here. Will be Alec Manor out of Stanford, and he would give them a young player who could play for playing time as a rookie. Coming out of his redshirt sophomore season, according to Ray, he caught 63 passes for 831 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's strong in contested catches down the field. Is a big target at 6'2", 210 pounds in their immediate pass game too. Steelers can use a big receiver where they keep George Pickens or trade him. That'd be one guy to keep an eye out. But Ray for the Powell definitely feels like for right now. I mean, the ideal thing right now for them is go defensive line, and that'd be Shamar Stewart. But anyway, that's going to conclude it for this episode of the Mansfield podcast. As we get closer to the weekend, we'll start slowly creeping into the heavier build-up hype going into Super Bowl 59, ninth ever Super Bowl rematch between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, this time, are the Eagles load up more enough where they could beat the Chiefs this time? We'll see. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. In recent memory, I probably compare this to like the Patriots Giants. Even though Eli's Giants got the best of Brady twice in those Super Bowls, I mean another classic one too would probably be like the Steelers and Cowboys of the mid to late '70s, right there. I mean, think about it. I mean, you're playing indoors twice. Granted, this time different venue, but man, I gotta be honest with you. I mean, it ranks up there. We'll see how that goes down. But once again, you guys can follow me on X at MansSteelCGR and on Instagram at MansSteelNation. So always leave you. Don't be trolling. Be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I go.